magic button, guys. We got to do it again. Hey, fam, this is your girl, Orlandina Balan, and I am the Fertile Woman, and welcome to Muscles and Stilletos. Tonight, we are going to be discussing grieving during COVID-19, and today we have three very special women that are going to be giving their own different perspectives of grieving under COVID. First, I would like to introduce you to Miss Melvina Ward. She is the owner of Undertaking Alternatives, and I'll allow her to talk about what she does, but she's going to be the one that pretty much holds your hand through the process of the homegoing, planning the homegoing for your loved ones. And next we have Lauren Lydiard, which is our counselor. She's going to be talking about the process of grieving and how we can grieve how to grieve now that the rituals that we are accustomed to has changed because of the rules of social distancing. And we also have our very special guest and friend, and definitely not a stranger to the Fitter Woman, but our very own Marie Williams. And we know her from Elite Pride Squad, and many of you take her jump rope classes on Wednesday and Saturday nights, right? No, Wednesday nights and Friday?
Saturday morning. Saturday morning.
Yeah, okay, Saturday morning, there you go. So if you like to jump, you can definitely join her class. But today she's going to be discussing her own personal experience of planning a funeral and going through the whole process, because many of us have been touched by COVID-19. Many of us have lost loved ones, and that process has been extremely painful because it doesn't look like it once did. And so tonight, we are going to focus on what we can do, what are our options, how to grieve, just how to work around it and how to deal with it. We're not problem solvers, but we definitely want to at least everybody to walk away with something as opposed to feeling lost. So I'm going to open this up because this show is actually inspired by my good friend Marie. She lost her aunt to COVID-19, and she wrote a very, very moving post. Whenever you get a chance, you can definitely check out her page and read this post. And it was just really the talk. She spoke about the whole process, it was very painful just sharing this with her family. And what her words moved me such that I was like, this is something that needs to be discussed. You know, we know that death is not a very popular subject for reasons we know, but it's a taboo subject, and a lot of times we don't want to talk about it. But what happens is it leaves a lot of things unsaid, and it leads to misinformation. It leads to more stress in a very stressful situation, and more hurt than anything. So today we're going to kind of just take off the Band-Aid, but we have a counselor here to make sure that we do it appropriately and to do triage should it be necessary. So I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves and to just talk about what you do. And I'm going to open it up to Lauren. I'm going to start with you and just tell us what you do.
Hi. Hello. My name is Lauren, and I am a licensed social worker in New York State. So I work as both a psychotherapist and a counselor and educator. So as a psychotherapist, I specialize in working with LGBTQ clients, and I also help transgender and non-binary adults with accessing surgery. Another thing I do is I work in a Coney Island public high school, and that's where I focus on dating abuse, violence intervention, and doing classroom workshops. So over the past few years in working with youth of color in Brooklyn, it has meant that I've had to become a grief expert. And I've been running support groups about grief for a few years now and learning a lot about some of the false beliefs we have about how we're supposed to grieve and the kinds of spaces that we actually need to hold our grief.
And I want to thank you for coming on to Muscles and Stilletos, because that is exactly what we need to touch upon. And it is something that will be greatly needed and greatly appreciated. Next, I want to welcome Miss Melvina Ward. Melvina, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how this topic is closely related to that? Melvina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. A little bit muffled. Yes.
Okay.
I'm a little
my name is Melvina.
There you go.
I own and operate Undertaking Alternatives. Basically, what we do is we assist the family from the beginning to the disposition. And sometimes we even go past that just because we do. We received the first call when a family member passed away. We take vital information that's needed for the death certificate. We then discuss the options that the family has as far as cremation or burial, if there's going to be any services. Once we do that, the family is kind of in the background while we do all of our paperwork. We reach out to cemeteries, the crematories, we get cremation clearance, we get authorization to do burials. There's just a lot of things that we have to do once we get the information from the family. Once the final disposition has taken place, if there's a cremation, then what we do at Undertaking Alternatives is a bit different than other funeral homes. We are more personalized, and we like to have that contact with the family. So opposed to the family coming to the funeral home to pick up their death certificates, to pick up their cremains of their loved ones, we deliver them to their home. We personalize it as much as we can. So that's what we do. And then if there's any other guidance that we have that we can give to the family, we do offer that as well.
Thank you so much for coming on tonight. We appreciate you. And okay. Yeah, you good? Perfect.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So really, okay, excellent. Because I hear a lot of background noise. Is there something rubbing against the device possibly?
I think I have my window open.
Okay.
So
okay. No, I don't think it's. It might be something close to it. Just close to the phone. Okay. All right. So thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, whatever it is. I'm going to mute you. Okay. Perfect. There we go. Marie, thank you for coming on. And can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? And honestly, you can just jump right into what had you write that amazing post about your aunt and going through the process.
All right. My name is Marie Williams. My company is Elite Bride Squad. And what I do at Elite Bride Squad is I'm an officiant and I write wedding ceremonies and I perform wedding ceremonies for couples. So that's usually my venue and what I'm, doing for people, which is a little happier event than our topic tonight. I'm also a fitness instructor, so I do fitness classes and personal training and group fitness classes. So all parts of life that are, a little more joyful. But what is inevitable for all of us is that at some point we do have to deal with death. And in the times that we are right now through this pandemic, many of us have had to deal with death. And sadly, last month, my family, we lost my aunt, my mother's sister. It was unexpected. She was in a nursing home, but she was fairly in good health. Only reason she was in the nursing home is because she was older and she needed, some assistance. But overall, she was in good health. So when we found out, it was a shock. It was not expected at all. And again, as thousands upon thousands of families have dealt with around the world, you have to make arrangements for your loved one in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic. And those things are different. And so really what led me to do that Facebook post, it was at the end of the funeral. We had gotten home. And there were just so many emotions that I was feeling, so many things that I had been trying to process over the 3 weeks, actually over 3 weeks, from the time we found out about her death to the funeral, with my family, dealing with my elders. And in that moment, I just needed to express it. I did not know that it was going to touch as many people as it did touch. I can't count how many comments and text messages and phone calls and just people that responded to the post. And the main thing for me in that moment was to have people understand, in the times that we are in right now, it is not the same. And we were in the midst of protests around the country of people who were upset because they were still under quarantine rules, and people who didn't want to wear masks and things like that. And in that moment, it wasn't a judgment on those people, because they do have a right to protest, but it was a call for you to understand there's another side to the story. And as inconvenient as it may be for you to have to be inside, or inconvenient and financially difficult it may be for you because your business is shut down or you can't go to work, death is the final inconvenience. You can't come back from that. So that's really why I did the post. I was just being as honest as I could be in the moment and expressing my experience and my family's experience of sending our loved one off, which was completely different than it had ever been before, because that wasn't the first funeral in our family. I arranged a funeral with the help of my family, of course, for my grandmother, my father, other relatives, but this one was different.
Very good. Thank you so much. And thank you for, opening yourself up to this conversation, because it's not very easy. And honestly, what really touched me on that post was the fact that you said things are not the same. They're never going to be the same. And one of the things that I found the most moving was when you spoke about your uncle, and as he was watching the funeral via Zoom. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So again, in planning the arrangements, because we are limited with the number of people that could come. Normally, I'm from a big, fat, Haitian, loud family. We do everything together. Some of us are here in New York, but we are all over. We're in Chicago, we're in Canada, we're in Haiti, of course, we're in Florida, we're in Maryland, we're everywhere. But if something is going down with the family, and I say it like that, anything going down, everyone congregates. So of course, a funeral, everybody would have found their way to be here physically. And how it would normally have been is we all gather, we have our services, we have all the religious rites and circumstances that we normally would do. And then the family comes together in the end through the sadness, through, telling stories, through sharing comfort, through touching and hugging and kissing and comforting each other. And that didn't happen for my aunt. We were limited to 10 people. And so we were at the cemetery. We didn't have a religious service, like we didn't have a church service. There was none of that. There was no viewing of the body. There was no, again, all the rites of passage that would normally have happened didn't happen. So of course, for all the people and loved ones that couldn't be here, I arranged for us to play the funeral on Zoom. And there was a moment where we're at the cemetery, and my mother did arrange for a priest to come to be able to say some words. I'm watching my family, watch it on Zoom, and one of my uncles was just crying, and he was sobbing, and that was his big sister that passed away. And to see my uncle that emotional and not be able to be there just to give him a hug, or his other siblings not to be with each other. If you think about it, our siblings outside of our parents, they're with us our entire lives. They're the people that we know the longest. My elders are of a certain age, they're in their 80s. So they've literally known each other their entire lives. That is their unit. They literally speak to each other every single day. My grandmother had 11 children. Well, now 5 of them are still surviving, but they all speak to each other every single day. They call each other. One will call the other. They all knew when everything was happening with each one of the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And so for them not to be able to be together and to see him, on the Zoom call, just, alone in his office, wherever he was, and just crying and not being able to touch him and just be together the way we were. That was one of the harder moments, but that's how things have to be now.
And the thing was, when you described it and you spoke about it, I'm one of 6 siblings, and I could not imagine not being able to be there. God forbid something that happens, like I could not be there for my sisters. And that was really, when I saw that and I read that, and I was just like, oh my goodness, everything has changed. And so I'm going to ask you this question, Lauren. Because of social distancing, our grieving rituals have changed, correct? I know in the Haitian culture, we have a repast. You know, we all come together for the wake. And then the day of the funeral, we bury our loved ones or cremate, or however we do it. We have a big send-off, a big mass. Then we get together and we have jumeau and Patty's like, there are things that we do, and then we cook all this food for the family, for the close members of the immediate family, and we support them. And I lost an aunt and uncle, and during the funeral, you know, my cousins lost both their mother and father within a week apart. And it was so devastating to watch because we couldn't even go up to them to hug them. So these rituals have changed. How can we grieve when we can't even grieve in the manner that we're accustomed to? Things that are just generations of culture. How do we do that? Because it is through grieving that we celebrate our loved ones, and it is through grieving that we begin to heal. But that has changed. What can we do?
And there's also distinguishing between grief and bereavement, that there are like multiple layers that are happening to all of us. So we are all experiencing grief over the loss of things we were looking forward to. And we're grieving lack of access to spaces. We're grieving lack of access to touch. Bereavement is specifically the loss of a loved one. So to bring all of those things together, it is such a compounded experience of so many different types of losses that it requires a new resilience. This is a time of skill building. And when we are devastated, that's not necessarily the time we think, let me try something new. I feel really innovative and creative, right? We are at our lowest point of energy and innovation when we're traumatized. So bereavement is a trauma, and grief can be traumatic. I have ideas about specific things we can do, but the real truth is how unique the process of grief is to the individual. And part of that is culture and ritual, and, you know, to have access to that big, beautiful family experience of holding one another and making food together and crying together. All of those things, every person has an ancestral lineage that has carried us through to today to help us process. And they say that those rituals are not for those who've passed, they're for the living. So in taking that and moving forward, we have to look within to look without. What is it that we need in order to feel a sense of closure when the whole world is experiencing a lack of reality? I'm feeling unreality, that anything that's bad happening in the world just seems like a terrible story, and I'd love to just turn to the next page. This is a nightmare to live in a pandemic. So isn't it also a nightmare that person I really love and cherish, I don't have access to anymore? They're not around anymore. So finding closure and finding ways to connect to an inner sense of, okay, I need to make this real for myself so that I can process, does not have to happen immediately. It's something that we don't have to pressure ourselves to do. When we feel ready, and that is super key, then we can start to explore what are some things that I could try. But that's something that also can be fraught within a family network, that some people are like, we need to have a Zoom memorial now. And somebody else might be like, well, let's wait. Maybe we'll be able to have a memorial in person in 3 months. I feel like I'm not the only person that could speak to that in this group about trying to establish, a new ritual with the competing needs and expectations of different people within a family system. There's also the power dynamics of like who has more influence to make those decisions when other people may not emotionally be ready.
Correct. That's really big. Melvina, okay. Oh, Melvina, you have to unmute yourself. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
There you go. I can hear you.
Yes.
Melvina, so we were just talking about this concept of rituals changing, and how can you hear me? No? All right. Hold on one second. All right. I can hear you.
Can hear me?
Can you hear me? I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Melvina?
I've lost you.
You lost me? All right. I'm going to try this and do this. Okay. Better? No? All right. One moment, everyone. How about now? Can you hear me? No?
Hello?
Yes.
Now I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So
I'm sorry, what was that question?
So the question is, with this concept of the rituals changing, you yourself work with these rituals. You help families create their, they plan how they're going to send their loved ones home. And now that looks different. And you're the one, handling the families. How have you adjusted what you do or help families to adjust to this new way of sending their loved ones home? Like, what have you had to change, and how have you helped families to adjust to this change?
That's a really good question because I haven't adjusted. Every family that I work with, it touches me personally because that's like my family. And I treat all of my families as if they're my family. So I haven't adjusted. I don't know if it's something that I can adjust with. The only thing that I can do as a funeral director, and guiding my families is just to make suggestions and see what works best for them. And so I just kind of, depending on the family that I'm working with at the time, their customs and their traditions, I just go off of what I get from them. And so I just kind of wing it because this is all new to all of us. And I don't think it's something that we can adjust to so fast. Because everything has happened in such a swift motion in these past couple months and weeks. They're just kind of fusing together. Um, to adjust, I think it's going to take a whole lot more time than what we've had so far. And it's just difficult. It's difficult for all of us because not only as a funeral director, I'm a human being and I have family and I've lost family, blood family, and it's hard. So I haven't adjusted. We just kind of we just go with the flow with what the family is requesting, and we try to make adjustments to accommodate our families as much as we possibly can without making it seem so abnormal. But that's the only thing that we can do.
I can
You
say,
know what? I love. Go ahead. Go ahead, Marie.
no, I was just gonna jump in because again, in
I'm
speaking
sorry,
of,
I lost you again.
can you hear us? I was just
Got
saying,
it?
in speaking about the process, Melvina was our funeral director, and I just have to say what a godsend she was. Her and her company, Undertakers Alternatives, for people to understand. And again, I'm here tonight because I know Orlandina, because I know we're all about service, and I know someone watching this will get so much out of it. There are people that are dealing with this right now in this moment, or people who have dealt with it, and people that are forthcoming, because, you know, even though thankfully it seems that we're on the downcline of this pandemic, there are still people dying from COVID-19. There are still people who are just dying from regular life things that are happening. And I have to say, when we found out about my aunt, myself and another aunt spent the better part of that evening calling over 25 different funeral homes, trying to find somewhere to take my aunt's body. They were all booked up. I have funeral directors that told me they are so sorry, condolences. However, give them a call next week. Maybe they can take the body. I had others who just straight up told me, we're sorry, we just can't take people. So when I reached out and Orlandina told me about Melvina, I contacted Melvina, and from the beginning, she was amazing. She literally was like, I will get back to you. Let me start the process. And from beginning to end, she took care of us in a moment when I really was getting to a point of feeling hopeless and helpless because I didn't know what we were going to do. The nursing home was telling us we had to retrieve my aunt's remains and we had nowhere to take her. So for people to understand that this is on top of all the emotional and the pain and the, you know, sadness that you're going through in the moment of a loved one dying, is the logistics of, I have to find somewhere to have funeral homes and cemeteries are not available for maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks. Next month, we can bury you, and you have to coordinate the funeral home with the cemetery to be able to have those services done. You know, you have to explain to your family members and friends, no, you can't come because I can only have a certain number of people. So it's a process, and I agree with what Melvina said. There's not an answer. There's not a solution. We're learning as we go along. But from the human experience, this is what people are going through emotionally on top of having to lose someone you love.
You know, Melvina said something so poignant, and Marie, you said the same thing. When you said, I haven't adjusted, and that it's going to take time. What was interesting is I remember speaking to a young lady who, she's in real estate, and she was told, okay, we have to shift. We have to shift. We have to shift. We have to continue to shift with the way the market is going, with the way the economy is going. Got to shift. So you're being and as a teacher, you have to shift and change the way we do instruction at a drop of a hat. And so everyone has had to shift. And it hasn't been easy. And I think that people who have not been able to shift successfully, and I'm using air quotes on purpose, shift successfully, or what was deemed as successful, feel like as if they're failing. And the reality is it's only been 3 months. It's been a long 3 months, but it's only been 3 months. And to say that I haven't adjusted is not a sign of failure. It's human. And this unrealistic idea of how fast we need to shift I find that it's disruptive to others. So, Lauren, when people are being forced to, and you said it, to be creative at a drop of a hat in a space and time where it's very difficult to be creative, because creativity requires some sense of joy, some sense of excitement, and that's what fuels your creativity. How can you be creative in this moment in time? Because everything about it is so, disheartening.
Well, I also want to lift up what you're saying about failure, that it's not possible to fail at grieving unless you're hurting yourself or somebody else. So that can mean you cannot accept the invitation from the universe to grieve. You can put it on hold. You can put it up on the shelf and say, I cannot do this right now. When it comes to what Maria's talking about, where you are calling around all those places to try to find a place for your entrepreneurs, my goodness, that is not something you had a choice about. So what I'm talking about is about the mental process of making peace with the loss, and not about the tasks related to it. I want to be very clear, because it is a privilege to delegate. It is a privilege to be able to sit in your process. There are other cultures that have rituals where you go sit on a mountain for 6 months to really process the death of a partner or a child. And we live in late stage capitalism. I don't have that ability to take 6 months off. I doubt that is a privilege afforded to anybody else in this call. So, we're always making do when it comes to grief. And you don't have to be creative is something that I just want to put out there, that you do not have to be smart. You don't have to be deep or thoughtful. You can wait. Because I think there is a lot of pressure to do the big thing in honor of the love that you have for who you lost. And they are what not,
you said, go ahead, continue.
Well, they're not going to be disappointed in you for not arranging the most brilliant flash mob funeral. Yeah, we could talk about wild, exciting ideas, but if that's not where you are, it is not a disservice to anybody. What's harder is talking about a family structure and the varying needs within the family structure, because, one person may absolutely need to have some closure through ritual, and another person may be like, I cannot handle that yet. I am not there. So I think if we afford an openness and a kindness and a gentleness for the folks that need to do something urgently to go and do it, and make space for everyone to be right, because it isn't possible to fail at grieving. You could not show up to your brother's memorial because it just hurts too much, and it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means that was not the way you needed to grieve.
What I found interesting was there was one point we were talking about, and you're all over it right now, which was that there's this whole, I think we were talking about the 7 steps of grief, where there's this whole, you're supposed to be following the steps, and you were like, absolutely not. Absolutely. No. Yeah, okay, go ahead, talk about it. There is no 7-step process, step 1, I think people feel okay, I guess I'm supposed to be crying now. I guess I'm not. Oh, he's not crying or she's not crying. They must not be hurt, or they must be cold or callous, or wow, they're not processing it. There must be something more. Right. So, is there this 7-step process that we all have to go through?
No. Here's why. So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross developed the stages of grief model based on research done with patients that were dying of terminal cancer. So her body of work that was turned into, a grief tome that has been passed through pop psychology circles is about coming to terms with one's own mortality. It is not about bereavement, which is about the loss of a loved one. It has been applied to loss of a loved one because when you're in a period of unreality where someone you love has died, you want a manual. You're like, what is going to make sense of this? Give me some steps. Give me something to do. Okay, maybe not everybody. Grief is unique. Some people want a manual. Other people are like, send me up to that mountain for 6 months and I will do nothing. So the 7 stages of grief, I think, can be helpful in thinking about ideas of different emotions that could flow through you. I think it's helpful to think about denial and bargaining and anger. Those are helpful ideas, but thinking of it as like, I'm supposed to do each of these things is just completely irrelevant. And I think it makes an opportunity for people to police each other and to make judgments about what is the right way to grieve. And we do that culturally too, right? We're supposed to wear black bands. We're supposed to like sit together for 30 days. We're supposed to go up on the mountain. How could there be one right way if over, the thousands of years that people have been people, we've come up with so many different ways. There are some things that continue to ring true. People want to be together and they want to be apart and they want to eat and they want to not eat and they want to sleep and they want to not sleep. I mean, based on that, sure, make some stages. But Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is not going to be the manual for you to get through this.
Correct. Thank you so much for clearing that up, because I feel like sometimes a lot of people feel as if that they have to go through this process. And the reality is, like you said, grieving is unique and it could be whatever you need it to be. One of the things that you all touched upon was the fact, like, Marie, you planned the wedding. And I know you personally, and that's, you are the planner. You automatically take control of things and organize and everything. Right, exactly, because I've been on the receiving end of that. Orlandina, bring it together. And I'm so thankful for it. So, but this next question is to you, Melvina, is, one of the things I've always said was, if you want to see the worst in people, okay, I'm trying to the worst, I think it's your headphones. It might be that, Melvina. I don't know what it is. There's a lot of background noise. Okay.
I haven't done anything.
No? Yeah, no, I something in the device.
I think it's the fingers on the device.
Oh,
Maybe
is your hand on the phone?
The movement of the phone.
Are you holding something? Maybe that. Put the phone down. Maybe that's what it is. There you go. That's what it was. Yeah. Yeah, much better. That's what it was. You have a very sensitive phone. High tech. So the question I wanted to ask is, one of the statements I always say, if you want to see the most stressful time in a family, is plan a wedding, plan a funeral. That is when you see some stuff come up in family structure. And that dynamic can be very interesting. I'm going to put it that way. It can be hurtful. It can be stressful. You're either coming together to do this, or it's creating some kind of separation because everyone wants something done a different way. And depending on the structure, and I'm going to use your word, Lauren, depending on the dynamics of the family, some people have a stronger voice than others. And they might want to do things one way, and the family wants to do it a different way. At the end of the day, everybody wants to grieve and send their loved one home. So the question I have for you, Melvina, is this: how do you get the families to come together when they are starting to just go into this whole spinning thing, and they're just starting to pull at each other, and it causes discord? And then I'm going to ask you, Marie, what did you do to bring the family together if you had experience? Not to put your family on blast or anything like that. But yes, so the question.
What I'd like to suggest for me.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You hear me?
It's something with that mic. Yeah.
I don't. Can you?
I don't know what it is. It's coming in and out. Okay.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Good.
What I'd like to suggest to the families is, depending on the individual that has passed away, I would say to them, what would they want you all to do right now? And you'll get a couple different opinions or a couple different suggestions. And so then we will just kind of meet in the middle. And I'll say, whatever differences you all have, if you can just set those to the side between each other and make this all about, you know, Uncle Tim or Aunt Macy, just to calm things down for that moment, just so that they can all be on the same page and grieve. They're going to grieve differently, but they'll be grieving together. And whatever their differences are, I'll ask that they, you know, just set those to the side and do what's best for your loved one right now. That's my suggestion, because a lot of times there's so much bickering and everybody thinks it's just our family. You'll be amazed the things that different families have going on amongst themselves. And it's not only us, or it's not only them. It's just different situations, but it can be just as emotional and as stressful. And sometimes you can be in a room with somebody and you just don't want to be there with them. And I'll say to them, right now, it's not about you. It's about making sure that you're sending your loved one home in a respectful manner. And just out of respect, just do the right thing for right now.
So you get them to focus. So you get them to focus on their loved one and what the ultimate purpose of this gathering is, to send our loved ones home. Yes. Marie, how did you rally the family together? How did you rally the family together?
Thankfully, again, like I said, my family, it is our tradition to come together. You know, we're not special. We have disagreements. We have, you know, moments where so-and-so may not be happy with so-and-so, but in times of crisis or times of joy or times of necessity, all that gets put in a box on a shelf, and it's, what do we need to do? Where do we need to go? So fortunately enough, for me, it was just a matter of organizing it, you know, delegating what I could. And, you know, and between my cousins, my sister, you know, we all just come together and we do what's necessary. So we don't have that type of dynamic. Again, in moments of crisis, it's just about what needs to get done and get it done. That's probably where I get most of my pull it together from in the first place. But I do, again, in this pandemic, I know so many people who have lost their lives or lost loved ones. And that does exist. There are families that, you know, they may not have spoken to each other for 40 years, and now they're, you know, they're forced to come to in this moment. And it's not always pretty. And Lauren said it perfectly. There is no one way. I don't need to feel a particular way to make you feel better about how I'm grieving, and vice versa. So I think the most important thing is to grant people grace. If you really can't be next to that person, take a couple of steps to the left. We need to be 6 feet apart anyway, you know, because at the end of the day, it's the law. You have to do what's necessary for your own peace of mind and your own well-being. But what Melvina said is perfect. The focus is not, in this moment, it's not about you as an individual. It's about the person that you're sending off, regardless of what has happened in the past or who in the room you no longer want to associate with. It'll only be for this moment. But, you know, for people who really have to deal with stuff like that, if you can allow yourself to give that person grace and take a moment and remember what it's about, you can get through it.
So now I'm going to ask Melvina, this question goes to you. The question is, a lot of times stress is due to not having planning. Things were not prepared, things were not I'm sorry. So this question is to Melvina. We can't see you, Melvina, but I know you're there. Oftentimes the stress is due to not, things were not planned. They didn't leave behind a will. They didn't leave behind insurance. They didn't leave behind the means in which to bury them, or they didn't leave any directions as to how they want to be sent home. And that leads to a lot of consternation and arguments among the family. So, Melvina, the question is, what do you find families are the most, what is it that they are unprepared for when they come to you or when they're in need of your services? What is the one thing, or maybe one or two things that, Melvina, you are muted. What do you find them to be unprepared? Okay, you're good. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Okay. What I would suggest, if there's some difficulties with finances, I just ask that the family try to pull together and try to come up with the funds for the final expenses. And depending on the situation and what they have to work with, I will then make adjustments with my general price list so that I can assist the family with sending their loved one home in a dignified manner. We do have to make adjustments to the services that they may have initially selected, just to try to accommodate them, to make sure that they get the overall goal accomplished at the end of the day. So if that's something that I can do, I definitely try to do that for the family. But I also try to speak with the families as well after a service and explain to them, we never know when we're going to pass away. We do have pre-planned arrangements, and maybe that is something that you all should consider to look into, is so that you can start putting money to the side to go towards your final cost of funeral services. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I have life insurance. Well, life insurance is great, but what happens in times like now, where you lose your job, you're not working, and you don't have any income coming in? Your life insurance is going to lapse. And once your life insurance lapses, they're not going to wait for you to get your job back and start to catch up on your other bills to then start paying on your life insurance. Your life insurance is just lapsed. And so now you're without. But if you set up a pre-planned arrangement and you pay on that, and at any given moment you fall on hard times and you're unable to make a payment at the beginning or end of that month, and you'll call us up and you'll say, for the next 2 or 3 months, I'm not going to be able to make the payment, whatever it may be. We'll say that's fine. We'll call the company that we go through for the pre-plan, and we'll let them know as well. And your funds will still be there. It'll still incur interest on the funds that you have in the account. And when you're able and ready and you're back on your feet and your funds are back to normal, then you can start making payments on your pre-plan again. As long as that pre-plan is paid for before you pass away, those funds are guaranteed to be there for you. So I do like to try to follow up with my families after services to explain this to them. Because a lot of people think that life insurance will carry them all the way until they need it. That's not always the case.
I think too,
So just a couple things I like to suggest as far as what I can do on our and then also just for them to get prepared, because you plan for weddings, you plan for birthdays. We need to plan for our final goodbye. And what legacy are we going to leave behind when we leave? And that's something we all need to think about, because we're all thinking about right now and today. but we still have to leave a legacy behind. And what's the best way to do that is prepare for it.
And everything you said is correct. We plan weddings, we plan trips, we plan many other things in our lives. We plan for college. But the one thing that many of us have a difficult time with is planning for a funeral or planning for our homegoing.
I think it's part of that is the unwillingness to talk about this subject. We started off, this call tonight saying this is a difficult thing and it's hard. And, because we've programmed ourselves to believe that if I don't talk about death, then maybe I don't have to deal with it. And what a lie that is. In January 1st, when we're all making our resolutions, like new decade, woo, who knew that this is what 2020 was going to look like? Right. And, we are in the midst of a pandemic worldwide. People are dying. But again, like I said earlier, people are dying from other things as well. And I know I'll speak for myself personally. For those of us who have older parents that we have to take care of, caregiving, and as uncomfortable as it is, sit down and have that conversation. For years, my mother's a planner too. And she's like, listen, let's be practical. My mother's very Catholic. She wants a mass. She wants this. She wants that. And she'd want to sit me down and say, well, this is what I want, because I know you're probably going to be the one to have to put it together. And I'd be like, whatever, Mom. I don't want to talk about that because you're not going anywhere. You're going to live forever. And that literally would be my response. And as I got older, it still is not a comfortable conversation. But I realized, and my sisters and I even had that conversation, it's like, you have to make plans. You have to be able to sit down and be in this uncomfortable conversation and hear not only what they want, so that what the expectations would be when the time comes, but to be able to make plans, like Melvina said, and prepare yourselves, because a funeral is no easy expense. My aunt had a nest egg aside, so we were able to use that, but the family was still, money from Chicago, money from Canada. Who can send this? This niece can send $50. I can send you $200. When you're going through that grieving process, it's not necessarily something you want to deal with, but you have to. So how is that preventable, or at least made a little bit easier? Is for those of us who do have our elders that we have to look after and take care of, to humble ourselves and be willing to have that conversation with them. What do you want? What do you expect?
And that is such a difficult topic. It's such a difficult conversation because, no one wants to talk about that, especially we can speak for the Haitian culture. It's like taboo. If you talk about death, then you're going to bring death.
Bring it in.
And it's unfortunate. You're bringing it in like, oh, you're talking about it. You're calling it in. When reality is, no, it does need to be something we want to talk about. We need to talk about. Marie, I wanted to ask you, well, actually, Melvina, you kind of touched on this. Hold on a second. So the question for you is this. I'm going to give this to Melvina. One of the things you said was the concept of insurance versus prepaid planning. So you're pre-planning. You're making a plan, you're putting money aside. Because even for myself, I'm like, oh, life insurance. And come to find out, no. Because if my check lapses. All right, so here's the question. Since these rituals are changing, right? And this concept of death, nobody wants to talk about it, but it is something we do need to talk about. Because I feel like the way that we've had to send our loved ones home, we spoke about how grieving can sometimes, it brings closure and sometimes it doesn't. Marie, do you feel as if in the way you had to send your aunt home, do you feel as if it was complete? Do you feel some sense of closure? And I don't want to be kitschy or, use that word, but was what you had to do, was it enough for you and your family to find some sense of closure? or to begin. Let me say that. Not that I expected it to end and be done and you're ready to rock.
Right. I'll speak for myself personally, because I don't know that I've had this specific conversation with, my mother and my uncles. I came to terms with what we did, the best that we could do in the circumstances that we were in. And even though it wasn't ideally what I think, all the elements that my aunt would have wanted were not there. Based on what we had, we did the best that we could. And in the end, for me, to get from my elders, because, it's a matter of respect, to have them say to me, thank you so much. Thank you for arranging the Zoom. Thank you for doing what you did. Thank you for being able to pull this together. That was, that warmed my heart and that made me feel better. I think any other conversations are my own thing that I'm like, it could have been better. I wish she had this. I wish she was able to, have her wig on the way she wanted. Those are things conversations that for myself to process and deal with. But overall, you do the best with what you have. And I think we did that.
I think that's also picking up on the internal, the external with grief, like that. I'm hearing you talk about the external elements of performance for the family, of ritual, and the success that you felt in having that validated and affirmed that you successfully honored someone that you loved in the eyes of the rest of your family. And that is one of many steps in your own internal process, right? Like, what are we going to say? Oh yeah, you're done. Like, check. Right. Done having feelings, I'm really glad that you found some solace by having your labor witnessed, because it sounds like you did a tremendous amount of labor.
Thank you. And, and I want to say that I didn't do it by myself. Like I said, my cousins, my sisters, we all just pulled together and did what we had to in, extraordinary circumstances. And I think that's the most important thing. At the end of the day, a family, however it's comprised, is still family. And if you could find a way to come together and give support and give whatever it is that you can give, however you can give it, that is what should be expected and nothing else but what you can give.
Yes.
Perfect. Melvina, this question is to you. We're talking about this shift and changing, and what you said was so apropos. Like, I haven't quite adjusted yet. What have you found to be one of the most shocking or most surprising change that you've had to apply to what you do? Based on the social distancing or based on the policies that the CDC or guidelines that have been put in place for you to be able to help your family. But what has been the most surprising or shocking policy or change that you've had to adopt, I should say, in order for you to do what you do?
I would say that would be for the family not being able to physically see their loved one in person. That's the most difficult adjustment for me, because a lot of people, they need to be able to see their loved one. I know we're speaking about the phases of grief, grieving, but a lot of people need to actually see their loved one to be like, okay, they have passed on. Okay, this is real. Okay, they're not going to call me tomorrow. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So them being able to see them and identify them physically for themselves has been really hard to adjust to. What we have done is we have taken photos of the name tag, the wristband, the toe tag, and of their face, just so that we can have that photo to show the family, because you'll be surprised how many families that I've met with, I've spoken to, and they're like, I don't even know if that's really my loved one that you're getting cremated. How am I supposed to know that that's who's in that casket? How am I supposed to know that that's who took to the crematory? And I respect that. And so because of that, I feel that the least we can do is take that photo so that they can see it on this piece of paper and say, yes, that is my loved one. So that does allow them some sort of acceptance that their loved one has passed on. That's been the most difficult for me.
Wow. That you know what? I've never thought about it. I've never been one to be like, okay, I need to see in order to witness. I actually prefer not to see because I like to remember the person as they were in life. So I prefer not to see. But I never understood. Now I understand why someone feels that they need to see, that they need to witness that this is indeed their loved one that they're sending off, and this is now final, and this is what it needs to be. Lauren, I wanted to ask you this. We are coming to a close, and you ladies have just been amazing, been able to answer so many amazing questions. So, Lauren, if we cannot be together because of social distancing, we can only be with our immediate people, our immediate surroundings. If we cannot be together, how do we grieve together? How can we support the immediate family without without touching? Because that, when you spoke about that earlier, about there has been a death, there's a grief in that. That concept of being able to touch, that has been the most difficult thing for me, is not being able to, because I like to give hugs, and when you pat somebody on the back, if they're not, if they're crying, if they're upset, just to give them a hug. So how can we grieve together if we can't be together? How can we support one another without being together?
So I think that this goes hand in hand with how we celebrate and how we are seeking joy. So whatever strategies we are employing to feel connected to people that we cannot physically share space with, those things are also going to apply in trying to hold one another through pain and sorrow, just as much as, in joy. I was working on a birthday card to a friend before this call, and he is a hugger. He is the touchiest, sweetest guy. And I've known him 15 years, and so we just always kind of fall into a cuddle as we're hanging out. And it's really killing him to be like shacked up just with his husband and not able to like hug his whole friend network. And for his birthday, I found this card, which is kind of an homage to how much I wish I could give him that touch, because I understand what that means to him. And honestly, this is a card that I would also send to him in his grief, because I know that that is part of his, love language. Dr. Gary Chapman, the 5 love languages, fascinating concept, right? His is definitely
we physical. Show on that one, the 5 love languages, definitely. Marie, you're gonna be on this one.
Yeah, you got it.
So, there are some things that I think for one group of people or for one relationship, they may ring hollow. I have a friend who refuses to get on a video call with me because video just makes her feel so sad in its approximation of being in the same room.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, like, I get that. I understand that. I feel the difference between this and being in the room with you all. And for her, that is so much of an extra loss and a reminder of the grief of not being able to be in the same room, that I wouldn't ask her to do that if I was looking for support in my own grief, or if I was looking to support her in her grief. So one thing that I think that's really kind of had a resurgence right now is mail. And I think that's because we have this lack of physicality in our love right now, because we can't have physical shared space in the same way. We can't touch each other. So having physical things that can pass from one person to another while maintaining our own safety are really powerful. I have bought so many stamps, so many. There is a wide array available to you at the U.S. Postal Service. Let's keep them afloat. But that's also a way of offering that you care. I've heard so many people say, like, I was sick of people saying that they didn't know what to say. Like, I don't care. I'm not here to like make you feel comfortable or to make you feel better when I'm having a hard time. But when somebody just sent a card that said, I just want you to know that I care about you. I'm so sorry this happened, and I'm here if you need anything. You know, they weren't making me hold space for them and like process with them. They were putting it out there as a gift to me of support by sending that card. Something else that can be really helpful is like the small tangible, like sending a $5 Venmo with a little like coffee emoji. Like, I really wish I could take you to a cup of coffee right now. Or like sending them like a Seamless or a Grubhub gift card, like for, you know, for the times where it's hard to cook for yourself because you'd rather just stay in bed and be sad. Those are the times that, you know, I hope you'll let me take you out for Chinese food. So I think the smallest moments of processing the everyday and feeling connected in our relationships are what ground us as individuals and as communities. And for some, a Zoom memorial may be the most powerful thing to process. I'm more interested in the long-term experience of ongoing ritual and connection, because that does require creativity.
Yeah, it does. It does. So sending a card, sending a little $5 Venmo for a cup of coffee, sending, you know, doing a Zoom memorial or some type of, like, my family, we did a Zoom family meetup. You know, we just said, let's get on Zoom. One of my cousins just put it together because it was just like you're saying, this concept of the lack of missing each other and sharing a same space, but having these, it sounds like little moments of, hey, I remember you. Hey, I still care about you.
Yeah.
And hey, I'm still thinking about you. So even though we're not in this space, just a little reminder of, hey, you all right? You know, I'll, you know, here's a gift card to Grubhub. I'll take those too. Well, not right now. Another month or so. But you know, just things like that. Like, hey, I just want to let you know that I'm here for you. So just reminding people of those moments. So that's that. You know, and I love the fact of us going back, since we're not there to hug, we can use our words. And even if you don't have to be an amazing poet or an amazing writer, just, hey, just thinking of you. And that card, just taking your time to pick out a card just goes such a long way.
Ooh, I forgot one.
What?
Grief buddies.
What is a grief buddy?
I'm so glad you asked.
I like that. Grief buddy.
A grief buddy is somebody that you can talk to whenever it impulsively strikes you, because it will impulsively strike you. I just saw this this flower on the street that really reminded me of my grandma Jean, and I know she would have grown those in her garden, and I just wanted to tell someone that. So the grief buddy is the person who would receive that message, and they would get it because they also have known loss. And maybe they're in a, but that's the thing about grief. It's like, once you're initiated, you're in, you get it. And not everybody wants a grief buddy. This is definitely for the more chatty, which you may have guessed I am in that category. So not everybody is going to take to that, but I have a friend where she lost a family member around the same time that my father had a devastating stroke. And he survived the stroke, but it is an ongoing loss. It's called an ambiguous loss when somebody has not died but is drastically different. And so I can, whenever I want, send her a message about something that I realized, or, you know, something I'm noticing about my loss, or about my aforementioned Grandma Jean. And it isn't something that's going to be a strange, weird interruption in our friendship. It's something that will be accepted and held. And that's something that could also happen if it was somebody else that I shared my Grandma Jean with. You know, like it could be about the same person, or it could be just somebody else that knows loss.
Wow. I like that. And it feels like, you know, you're not alone when you have this grief buddy. So it's like, hey, it's like having an accountability partner, but it's without that sense of having to. But it's good that you have someone like, hey, I'm feeling this way right now, and I need someone to open up to. Melvina, I feel like this next question it dovetails perfectly with what Lauren just explained. And it's that when I hear about what you do, and I heard how Marie just absolutely adores you, and how she felt so comfortable, and how she felt that you were able to assist her and her family in such a difficult time. It sounds like you handle your clients with such tenderness. And why?
I don't know what it is with this audio.
It's an audio. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Is it rain?
I know.
I hear you, but it's an echo.
It's an echo. I don't know why. Let me see. Is that better? Is it still echoing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm gonna try one more thing. Let's see. Down on the echo.
I'm not sure what the problem is. Okay.
Better? Good?
No.
No.
No, I can't hear you at all.
Hear nothing.
At all now.
Whatsoever.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? No?
Okay. Better?
Yeah.
Okay. So the question is, I'm going to rephrase it. So Lauren spoke about having these moments when she gives a gift card, sending a card, just having these moments of I remember you. That to me is a concept. It's touching. When Marie spoke about how well she was so appreciative of what you did and how you helped her and her family, and you look at your clients as family, I noticed that you handle your clients with such tenderness, like almost like, white glove, with just such tenderness. What makes your services so different from what we would find in a traditional funeral home? Because I see a difference, but it just seems like more gentle. What makes you so different? And why did you choose this approach? Can you hear? Are you able to hear us?
I hear you.
Okay.
Now I hear you.
Okay. Were you able to hear the question?
Now I'm not sure what's wrong with the connection. I'm not sure.
Okay. Are you using a cell phone or headset or computer? Rams, are you using a cell phone, computer, or headset?
No, I took my earpiece out.
So you're speaking directly to your phone? Okay.
I have you on the speaker on my cell phone.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I do, but it's a lot of static.
Okay. So I'm going to keep the question.
Muffling what you're saying.
Yes, I hear static on your end too. Okay, so the question is, what makes your services so much different from your traditional funeral home or funerary services? No?
Okay. From what I heard you say, what makes our services different than others? Yes, ma'am?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I like to go above and beyond. I know a lot of people say that that's what they do, but I like to show it. I like to make sure that that's exactly what I'm doing for my families. Um, I live way out on the east end of Long Island, and so many of my families, they live in the Bronx, they live in Brooklyn, they live in Queens, they live in Manhattan. And I take the time and I make it a habit to make sure that I take time to go to each of my family's homes and deliver to them their death certificates, flags for the veterans, the remains of their loved ones. Um, I I just like to do that because if they're not coming to me, I want to make sure that I can go to them. I want them to know that I'm a person just like they are. And the same thing that they're going through, I may not be going through it right at that time, but it's something that I've dealt with in the past, and it's something that I know I'm going to deal with again in the future. And I want them to understand that they're not in this alone. Um, and whatever I can do to assist them with going through this process of grieving and losing someone that they love, I want them to know that I'm going to be there with them. So that anything that I can do for them, I try to make sure that I go out of my way to get it done for them. Um, I do that because that's just what I do, and that's just the person that I am. Being raised, my mom told me to treat people how I want to be treated, and so that's what I do. I treat people how I want to be treated. I don't want to say it's a service because this is something that I've always wanted to do, and I enjoy doing what I do. It can be painful at times, and it's very sad. But I enjoy what I do because I'm helping someone else take those steps to get past the first step.
And that sounds...
And to help them understand and realize that, it's not going to be like this all the time.
Mm.
Over time, it'll get a little better. And I just want to make sure that I'm that person to deliver that message to them.
That sounds so amazing. And this is what we need to hear. We need to hear messages like that, even during the saddest moments, to understand that, that this, it's your right to feel like this, but to know that this too shall pass. It will pass at the time that it needs to pass. There's no rush. There's no need to jump to the end and just say, hey, I want to skip over the heartache thing and just kind of just get to the end of things. Marie, as a wedding officiant, and it sounds like I'm shifting gears, but not really shifting gears. As a wedding officiant, just like as Melvina has had to She said that it's been, she hasn't adapted to what this is, but she's helping her families anyway to get through this, to bury their loved ones during such a time. As a wedding officiant, you're on the opposite end of the spectrum. You've got these bride and grooms just waiting to tie the knot, and COVID-19, the pandemic happens, and they've had to become creative and change what their thinking was. How has that been for you to help them? Because, when we think wedding, church or reception, family, drinking, eating. Okay, drinking, eating, that's what I'm thinking. Drinking, eating, dancing.
Everyone's thinking.
Partying up. This is what is in your mind. And now you're being told no more than 10. And, what have you had to do to help your couples?
Well, overall, it is about being creative and making adjustments, and getting their mind around what was going to be a 150 person wedding is now going to be 10, 15 people. So I actually have a wedding in June in about 3 or 4 weeks that was just that. It's been cut down a lot smaller. We will be wearing masks, just different precautions that you just have to take. But I felt, for me, I had to still be there in person for them, because that's another concern for the couples. People who are officiating, they may not want to put themselves at risk. And I shouldn't put that in air quotes because it is a risk. But, some officiants and some people are not willing to marry right now. So it was important for me to know that I could still take the precautions, but still be there for my couples, because it is a hard time to have something you dreamt about, for at least a year, if not longer, and have it be so drastically changed. So the main things that have changed now that the governor, at least in New York State, has allowed marriage licenses to be issued again, and we can do these things online, because there was a period of time where you wouldn't be getting married anyway because you couldn't get a marriage license. So, so now that legality has been rectified, it really is just about reminding my couples, why are we here today? Why are you doing all of this? What is the most important thing? You have found someone that you love and you want to spend the rest of your life with that person. So with that focus, everything else is possible. And that's literally what I've told my couples. Everything else is possible as long as you remember why you're here. What are we doing this for? So we have you, we have me, we have 2 additional witnesses. We're golden. Legally, that's all we need. It is. And, and just kind of talking them down from the reception and all. It's those festivities that are really the most impacted. But, like the wedding in June, we're going to be doing it on Zoom. The location is still very cooperative. And that's the wonderful thing too. Humanity is great. Through times like these, you see the worst of people, but you also see the best of people. And I would hope, let's leave people with that reminder that overall, most people are amazing and they will be there for you. So the venues, the vendors, they're here to work with you and make it the best that they can make it for you. Just communicate, be organized, and be open to what is possible, even if it doesn't look exactly the way you originally wanted it to look.
It sounds like you're doing exactly what Melvina is doing, keeping everything focused on what is most important. Why are we here? To focus on sending our loved one home. And you, why are we here? To come together, we can still be married. We can still have that beautiful, sentimental wedding. It may not look the way we planned, but just staying focused on what is important. So we have some questions coming in from Rosa Oviedo. She wants to know, what is the name of the funeral director? She wants to know more, and what areas do you cover, Melvina? She wants to know your name, the name of your company, and what areas do you cover? Are you in the tri-state area?
My name is Melvina Ward. My business, the company is Undertaking Alternatives. We are located in Ronkonkoma, New
from
York,
regular
which is
life, things that are happening. And I have to say,
Sorry. Keep going. I'm sorry. I hit something by accident. Go ahead.
we're located in Ronkonkoma, New York.
from regular life,
That's about exit
things
61
that are
at
happening.
LI.
And I
I service all of New York.
I'm sorry. Something's
Yes.
happening. 1 second.
And like I said,
1 second.
from regular life, things that are happening.
Go ahead. You're good. Okay, you're good. It was on my end. There was feedback. So you're undertaking services. You're located in Ronkonkoma, New York. And what areas do you service? What areas do you cover?
and we service all 5 boroughs, Suffolk and Nassau County. I have gone to Westchester. Um, if you have any questions, you can give me a call. My number is 631-413-9664, or you can visit our website. It's www.undertakingalternatives.com. And you can also send a message on the website as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, undertaking services, Rosa. So undertakingservices.com. And I will write it in the chat for you. All right?
Yes.
Lauren, can you tell us where to find you if we want to hear more or just find out what what services you can, because you describe that you do more than this. So where can people find you?
So I'm available for other speaking engagements, but I also do trainings on a variety of topics. I do graduate research specifically on how other people that are taking care of others can prevent burnout from trauma exposure. So that's a specialty of mine, as well as working with queer and transgender adults and youth. So yeah, those are specialties of mine that I do trainings about. And I can be found at laurenlydiard.com.
Perfect. And I will also include that in the chat box as well. I will definitely be including that. Thank you so much, Lauren. And Marie, where can we find out more about you? If we want to find, because now we know that you do wedding planning even during now. So where can we find somebody like you?
You can go to my website, elitebridesquad.com. And you can definitely leave a message there to contact me. It has all my wedding and fitness services. You can follow me on Instagram at Lady M, the number 2W on IG. Also elite_bride squad is also on IG. So I do my fitness stuff on my lady page, and anything bridal will be on Elite's page.
Perfect. And she has a class tomorrow morning.
9 a.m.
Yeah.
Live on Zoom. Yeah, you can DM me for the link to the Zoom link. It's a HIIT class, jump rope. Rope is not necessary. We can shadow jump, but it's a good cardio workout. We do some HIIT training in there. We do some strength. It's a whole lot of fun. Anyone can take it. I have modifications for everyone, no fear. But we really have a good time.
So tonight we were able to talk about grief and what it looks like, or bereavement. Now that I stand corrected, thank you, Lauren. But talking about what that looks like during these times. And if you ladies could just please give us one closing statement each. If you had one takeaway for our listeners to walk away with tonight, what would it be? And I'm going to start with you, Lauren. What would be the takeaway?
Self-compassion.
Easy. Say it again. Compassion.
Self-compassion. Because if you're going to be mad at yourself for not doing what you think you're supposed to be doing or feeling what you're supposed to be feeling, you're not going to be able to heal.
Thank you. Marie, what would you want everyone to take away? What would be their takeaway?
Definitely self-compassion. Thank you, Lauren. But just be open and adaptable, because it doesn't have to look any particular way. That includes your own personal, what you're going through personally, the family, the services. We're used to it being one way, but you might have to adapt to it being another way, and it'd still be wonderful.
And Melvina, what would be the one takeaway you want everybody to come away with?
I just like the families that have lost a loved one to know that I offer my condolences. And those of you that are going through a loss, know that you're not in this alone, and that if there's anything that we can do, we're here to help. There is always someone out there who is willing to help and guide you through. And it's okay to feel the way that you do. However you may feel, it's okay. Those feelings will pass eventually, but it's okay.
Thank you. And I would say for me, note, as you all can see, that you're not alone, and you can see that there are people out there who are here to help you in any stage of the game, whether you're getting married or you need someone just to listen to, a kind ear to listen to help you bounce ideas, to have someone who can be as sensitive and gentle as you need them to be as you go through your own grief and you're burying your loved ones. There are people out there to help you. And this is why I wanted to create Muscles and Stilettos and establish this type of platform, because health is not just the body. It's not just about having the best body, but it is about having wellness and having a healthy disposition, a healthy mindset, and knowing that with life comes death, with joy comes grief. And these are normal phases of life, and it is part of wellness. So I wanted to bring this to you to show you that there are resources out there for you. There is information out there for you. So I wanted to thank each and every one of you ladies for sharing this evening, and just sharing your stories and sharing your wealth of resources. I will be putting up the information of each of our panelists on the chat box, and I will also, Charlene says this was wonderfully informative. And I'm sorry, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask, because we're here for, a couple more minutes. So if you have any questions, Charlene Mitchell says this was a wonderfully validating and informative dialogue. Sincere thanks to each of you ladies. Yeah, thank you, Charlene. Rosa Oviedo had said earlier that there was a comment that you made, Melvina. She said that when you said that I haven't adapted, I'm still trying to figure things out. She said that it was an excellent question and excellent answer from you. She loved the way you answered that. And Gail Bannister Munn says hello. She sends her regard, Marie. So I want to thank you all. Ooh, new comments are coming in.
Questions?
Yes. Next question. Rosa Oviedo, she said she loved this. Thank you, Lauren, Marie, and Melvina, Orlandina. Excellent information. Excellent Zoom connection. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate each and every one of you. And ladies, I appreciate you. And fam, be bigger, be fitter, be stronger. And I love what you said, Lauren. Have self-compassion.
Yeah.
So bigger, be fitter, be stronger. Have self-compassion. And Melvina said, this too shall pass. And Marie said, we have to be adaptable. And we can do it. We have the ability. So if you need anything, if you want to reach out to these ladies, you're more than welcome to. You can find Lauren on laurenlydiard.com, Marie, elitebrightsquad.com. Correct, Marie? Is the website. And you can find Melvina at undertakingservices.com.
Undertaking alternatives.
Say it again.
Undertaking alternatives.
What did I say? In my head? Oh, I'm sorry. In my head, I said undertaking. So you can find Melvina Ward at undertakingalternatives.com, Marie at eliteridesquad.com, and LaurenLydiard.com. Lauren Lydiard at LaurenLydiard.com. So, fam, be bigger, be fitter, be stronger, have self-compassion, and be good to you. Good night, fam.
Good night, all. Thank you.
Good night.